live video community call. With me today, our CBO and co-founder Jon Jones, and of course CEO and co-founder Joshua Tobkin. Josh and Jon, welcome to another community call, gentlemen.
Hey everyone, great to be here.
It's great to be here from San Francisco. I've been in the Bay Area for a little bit here. Time zones are just kind of like, on the way, but things are looking very familiar. And let's put it that way, like San Francisco, to be honest, is advanced significantly in the last 2 years. Let's put it that way.
We first met there. So how much has it changed since way back then? I mean, it's been a while.
It's, of course, the basics of, homelessness is better than it has been. Also, the streets are cleaner. I feel like the city is maturing quite a bit. I did notice there's a good amount of leases of an office space available, kind of driving around the city and such. I do have to mention that Waymo, the autonomous driving car, has made major strides. Back 6 years ago, these were all supervised before, right? Now what we have today is like the straight up unsupervised, like they actually drive very well, feel very comfortable. The feedback is like, no, I feel safer here than having a human driver. So imagine applying the same automation towards blockchains. That's like our whole discussion today, right? No, but no, it's a really great experience. And like, and San Francisco has improved significantly with this feature added. Like it feels very much an obvious future. We all knew this was coming. We all expected it to be a great experience, right? And autonomous robots, it's here now. And they started in SF, right? I believe, right? And yeah, I was there like years ago when they started, and they've come so far. I think Google owns them, by the way. We were, of course, friends with Google, and right? But this is Alphabet. This is like the Google Alphabet kind of, strategy, and it's very impressive. Let's put it that way. Eventually, these things are related to IoT devices, right? And there's going to be consensus algorithms applied to IoT devices eventually, right? So this is part of the Oracle problem, right? This is one of the things that the Oracle problem tries to address, right?
Back in the day when we were working with Advantech, IoT company, I remember us brainstorming and thinking, you know what, the biggest IoT meets blockchain dilemma and problem to be solved is probably self-driving cars. That's probably what we're going to see first, being able to solve self-driving fleets of Tesla cars, and being able to have owners of those cars rent them out and actually make hopefully make money doing that. And it's interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, no, definitely. And the thing about IoT meets blockchain is this proliferation of these sensors around the world. And Jon, you mentioned cars, robocars, etc. And as we know that those organizations are naturally moving towards robotics, right? So this extends to a vehicle that is on four wheels to on bipedal, bimodal, right? Like 2 feet. And the same principles could apply. And the thing is, like, not many folks know this, but like Supra, we do think about these IoT meets consensus algorithms for kill switches on hardware. So trusted execution environments on the hardware level, right? That can only be triggered with a cryptographic consensus, like supermajority vote. But that vote could be like your robot running through San Francisco. Different sensors to the supermajority along the way can actually trigger your kill switch to turn off. In a world of robotics and cars, it turns out, the technology behind consensus and IoT and oracles is basically, we actually believe this is what is the closest thing we've ever seen towards what you could ever call Web 4, is taking like blockchain consensus cryptographic security into a realm of automation meets real world assets. We talk about real assets as if like they're just like bonds in a bank vault of paper, or like machinery that are doing services in real time, right? So Web 4, I think we all talked about this, but it's probably some mixture of blockchain consensus cryptography with IoT interface, and also This system which is AI based intelligence, right? That nexus is something that Web 2 people might have been able to think about, but maybe Web 1 people could have thought about Web 4. Web 2 could barely think about Web 3. Web 3, we couldn't even think about what Web 4 was. And I think we're approaching that. I think these things are very clearly inevitable and very normal to coexist, right? Yeah. So, but yeah, James, you maybe have some questions for our audience. I know that there's a lot to go through.
And then someone said in the audience, "Hey, James, throw a rock behind you to make sure that you don't have a green screen."
Yeah, I can throw my pen just to prove Mr. Bull. Who is it? Space Bob Jones. There you go. Oh no, it's in the pool. Ah, there goes my pen. But I hope you guys saw that. Yep. But there's a whole bunch to get through. And I know, John, you've just come back from Token Dubai. Firstly, we'd just love to know, how was the conference in general? Is there a big Web3 community there? And also just break down maybe a quick summary of the talk you gave about what we're chatting about here, Supra being the operating system for AI.
Sure. So this was my second year in Dubai. Josh and I went last year, the year before, and there was a crazy storm. And the whole city flooded, and it was a totally different experience than this time. I had some great experience in that flood. I remember a group of us were just stuck together for hours on hours until like 4 a.m. It's a good story there a couple of years ago, but I'll tell that a different day. But this time in Dubai, no storm, no craziness, but there are a lot of events and a lot of builders there. And I noticed that there's quite a few people. I mean, there's definitely a lot of pull since the US and Trump got elected. There is quite a bit of pull of founders and companies moving to like New York, Miami, San Francisco. So there's still that pull, and that's still really big. But I would say that outside of the US, Dubai has one of the biggest pulls of crypto founders. And so there's a big community there. There are a lot of people that do end up traveling there for Token Dubai, but also people end up staying there quite a bit. So there's a good mix. There's a good mixture of builders that go there, key opinion leaders like KOLs, people that create content. A lot of people end up staying in Dubai as well. I saw a lot of videos. And so there's an interesting kind of like holistic like ecosystem of not just builders, but builders, KOLs, and also money people, right? So it is a good place to be for business development. Thinking about building an ecosystem for Supra, we of course have to have and focus on the right builders that can actually create products that can use our vertically integrated stack, native oracles as well as automation. But Dubai also has people that have capital, and it has content creators. So it's a good mixture of people there that can help build an ecosystem. So
yeah, and also, yeah, and like, sorry to interrupt, because John knows how I feel about this. Basically, I truly also believe that John's decisions here are very, very well calibrated and important for our ecosystem. But him and I also know that we barely believe 51% of Dubai folks we meet there. We've been there multiple times. There are definitely great, incredible people there too. I just want to make that clear. But yeah, no, so we're very
That's more
discerning.
of an inside joke. I don't know if we want to share that so much.
Yeah,
but
very
there
discerning.
are a lot of people in Dubai that you don't want to trust.
There are very many people that are good people, but also not great. Yes.
Yeah.
So actually, same thing, right? If you're going to trust a threshold AI oracle, you got to be careful. Right. So let's actually move the conversation towards that. So Oracle basically is very much important to trigger something on chain. It's basically what you can consider any category of off-chain compute. It could be multiplication. It could be fully homomorphic encryption. It could be MPC, right? It could be all kinds of different frameworks. It could be Dora calculations, Oracle prices. It could be exponential moving averages. It could be technical indicators. There's just many things that can be tracked and calculated, right? You can't do that through smart contracts. You can't do all that through smart contracts. You need an off-chain system that's highly optimized to calculate these things and provide a proof on chain as quickly as possible so you can execute it. So you can execute on your alpha, right? So of course, like this is all about latency as well. It's security versus latency and throughput. Standard cryptographic kind of world we're living into. Sure. The trend, and by the way, we were looking at this a while ago too, like 2 months ago, records on this talking about a system that can, let's not only think about 33% Byzantine nodes, let's think about crash tolerant nodes, systems where, oh, the algorithms behave differently at when 20% of the nodes are Byzantine, 13% of the nodes are crash nodes. They're not malicious, they're just a crash honest node otherwise. And you can create the space for algorithm improvements. This is what Solana's research team is starting to do, by the way, as well. But they are moving towards a consensus algorithm that is very similar to Moonshot. They are forced to actually adopt the historical academic literature into what does it say they are. And proof of history. Look, I'm going to be straightforward with the world right now. Parallel execution. Supra's parallel execution algorithms, we believe, can outperform sea level. Solana's parallel execution algorithm. I felt like we had a large buffer, okay, to publicly say that we can outperform Solana execution than Solana can, because I always knew proof of history and their data dissemination protocol were not optimized. Their true finality was 12 seconds, right? So it was very comfortable for me to say, of course, we think, by the way, our parallel execution strategy is going to outperform sea level, which is their parallel execution strategy, but also Moonshot is outperforming, their approach otherwise, like by orders of magnitude. We actually called them slow because they were. Now, if they are going to implement this approach with different network assumptions, the thing is we can play the same game. It doesn't take that much change to our algorithms to play that game, because they are moving into a paradigm, and Solana researchers that understand Supra and consensus, you can fact check me. They're moving into a paradigm where, for example, we are one of the big pioneers of saying it's okay and necessary to do all-to-all broadcasting for voting. We popularized that first, by the way. They also are realizing it's obvious you should do this. But Supra is known, Moonshot is known to be the first to pioneer that, by the way, like in academia, right? It seems so obvious to us, right? And everyone's like, oh, yeah, that's obvious. But was it? Because it wasn't 20 years ago when bandwidth was a major constraint, but now we have more bandwidth, we have more compute, there's different, approaches. So these algorithms and strategies are dynamic and they change over decades, right? We will all eventually push against speed of light limits, right? Which we do. So anyhow, I just want to say that very clearly, just to answer some community questions about how is Supra going to respond to Solana's approach. Well, for one, we think we can implement our ideas faster than they can, because their shifts from their paradigm to ours is dramatic. Whereas we have parameters to change, of course, testing to do, etc. But we're already all to all. We were already pipelined to the maximum to be still formally verified, to be secure. And yes, if you're saying you're allowing our existing protocols to go from the 33 strict Byzantine node constraint to 20, oh wow, that really loosens our capabilities to max out this algorithm. The cool thing is, I'm just going to spill the beans again, is what we have is built in. The moment that the first level of consensus isn't maximally achieved immediately, like we're talking about targeting also 100 milliseconds, right? For vote one, just like everyone else, if they're the same parameters, etc. The thing is, it's like another 100 milliseconds to prove that the full protocol in the Moonshot world was finished anyways. So we view this as an optimistic consensus, as a optimistic addition to our existing approach. Yes, some things have to be adjusted, but not nowhere near what Solana has to change under the hood. There are big things they have to change. They're moving into our territory. We all look the same in the end. I swear to God, we all look the same in the end. But Supra wants to always claim that our consensus algorithm is very fast and has scalability, but also we're designed for full vertical integration. They'll all want Oracle. They'll all want cross-chain communication. They all want AI threshold Oracle, which they can't all get. End of
So
rant.
that
Mic drop.
no, yeah, mic drop. We can end it right there.
No. We do not disrespect our competitors. I'm very happy for them. I like for Solana, for example. I told our team internally 6 months ago we can beat them because proof of history was not the end of the game. Yeah, but they came out 6 months. They hired the organizations that were their biggest critic in academia. That was a smart move by them. Good for them. They're finally listening. But to move Solana from where they're at today towards something closer to what Supra looks like is going to be a gigantic move. It'll take them a lot more time than Supra is going to just modify our existing algorithm for that setting with the most elegant fallback path, which is just our existing protocol, right? If they try to fall back to proof of history, it's messy. So like if that's their kind of fallback path, just mark my words, that is a bad design. Give them time to discuss that. But to be honest, man, like they're one of the most formidable competitors out there. You know, we have the business of and pleasure and privilege of standing on the shoulders of giants, but that never stopped them from also standing on the shoulders of giants, right? Now, I'm telling you, like the direction they're going towards keeps me up at night because, like, damn, they finally realized that their core approach had problems, and like the work we've done as a collective in the setting of the shoulders of giants across the computer, literature from like 1985, right, to the core PPFT paper to where we're at to in blockchain parlance like Cosmos and Tendermint was actually a pretty significant step that most folks missed. It was more accurate towards a classical consensus protocol that can actually keep its safety versus proof of work. Don't get me wrong, the brilliance of proof of work is just it introduces an entire new field category that no one had thought about. But the other work in classical consensus, right, is kind of just like you just keep to mind in everything you do, data dissemination, network distribution, communication latencies, and the speed in which you can verify signature, right? So these are natural for us to move towards. And when Solana is actually one of the biggest competitors to the entire space since they have basically in the humility, coin of saying, yeah, like whatever they did worked, but is it sustainable for long term? And where they're moving towards is actually a better design. And the reason why I'm kind of sounding the alarms is like, oh, they're adopting some of our existing core principles that are fundamental to us already. The good news is, and I'm publicly saying this because we're talking to our teams like, listen, there are some consensus and protocol changes that have to be made, but they're nothing compared to the changes that Solana has to make. We can just adapt our existing protocols into the setting in which there's not 33% Byzantine nodes, which is a more aggressive baseline, to a more relaxed 20% Byzantine nodes. And the other 20% or so are crash nodes. They're honest nodes, but they crashed and they're just not available, which, by the way, may mirror a lot of existing networks, right? And this framework, by the way, is a very common structure for example, distributed key generation in the wild, DKG, in the wild that Dr. Kate wrote like 12 years ago or so. This is the same settings that they considered because they knew that the system isn't just black and white. It's not, oh, everyone is 33% Byzantine consistently throughout, right? So once again, just to kind of keep it simple, is our algorithms are closer to what Solana is trying to design towards than what they're at. And we already have been thinking about these things for a long time, probably over a decade. Our team has the proof that we have thought about this framework over a decade ago, right? And at the same time, we can adjust our protocols to play in the same rules. And yes, the key difference is going to be when things don't work out, what does your fallback protocol look like? Ours has a very, very continuous protocol, so you don't feel the view change. you know, when I'm saying you don't feel we aim, rather, we aspire towards, you don't end up feeling a view change, meaning the leader is rotated, etc. It's a very smooth experience, and we're talking about very, very fast. So yeah, with that said, though, I mean, John, I know that the conversation that you had in Dubai was really sparking a lot of AI agent related conversations. I am
Yeah.
curious, like, yeah, where did that go? Like into also like agents with meets, like oracles meets containers, right?
Yeah. I mean, we talk, a lot of people in our community know about vertical integration. They know about the fact that we integrate oracles, automation, and cross-chain communication, and they get that. But on stage, especially specifically, well, I had a keynote and as well as a panel. On the panel, I talked about how AI agents will not only 10x, 100x, but most likely 1,000x the usage of blockchain, because of automation. You can set strategies with one click, but automation and AI agents will do so much more. And I think the audience resonated with that. I had a lot of people approach me talking about AI agents and interested in what we're doing. And so, yeah, I definitely saw interest from the audience from that perspective. And then afterwards, our team I feel like our team lit up a bit, our marketing team, and just in general, like we're of course already excited about automation, but even more so because of the Dubai trip and all the planning, not only from giving the keynote, but our marketing team prepared the presentation and all the marketing materials. I think our team in general is kind of excited about the future and use cases of AI agents on Supra. I think it's something that gives us energy, and definitely, Josh, you're a huge spark for that.
Well, no, I'm really curious to hear James, like, you know, out where you're at, in real, that's a real background. How do you feel about AI agents and like the Web3 world? And, just like this is unscripted, just, vibe out here, vibe code in public, like, and ask us questions, because to be honest, like, we're dedicated to answer tough questions. I've tried to be very transparent on X, for example, right? And still I hear the same question. So I understand that if the conversation moves towards token econ, we can take some of those questions. But in the meantime, James, in terms of AI agents, AI oracles, from your point of view, what kind of like excites you around that?
Yeah, well, obviously, being right here in Africa, we have quite a considerable sort of lower income population. So crypto has been looked at as an opportunity to try and grow a savings pot, right? And I think something that's come up the most with AI agents is trading bots, being able to set up an AI agent that can either copy a really good trader or be able to monitor markets and data price feeds and trigger automatically. I think something that I'm really curious about from my side would be, when do we see as a team being able to deploy those kind of AI agents? Because I would imagine those would kind of be the first level of AI agents running on Supra, because integrating with IoT devices, that's going to take some serious engineering and deployment time. But auto trading bots, that kind of technology is something that really interests me, specifically because people need more success in places like this. If they have their Binance accounts or their Bybit accounts and they're trying to grow that little pot, if they can do that automatically and successfully, earning 20-25% APR purely based on automatic trading, that's going to be really exciting. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, guys.
Okay, so yes, basically, of course, everything we say here is not financial advice, etc.
Absolutely.
This is entertainment, etc., and educational information. That said, the system itself is completely neutral. Its only job is to guarantee a fair playing field. The information in that executes the information out is transparent, it's fast, it's deterministic, and it's a ledger of truth, right? That powers the value in the end. It's necessary. So, there's questions around what to summarize the request is like, just like I have a small pool of assets, I want to grow it safely, right? Maybe that might be something you ask your private AI, right? If you had a private AI that you could trust and have your own kind of enclave, into you felt that comfort to say whatever you want and say, hey, listen, I have like $38 worth of this whatever asset, and I would like to grow it safely over time. And then what's the AI going to respond to you? It has to ask you, like, what does safely mean to you, right? And then also it should suggest some things based off of the user preference. The AI is all about intent discovery. To be a good AI, you're helping solve the intent of your agent or human, right? And yeah, so more or less, right, this is the flow. It's like, okay, I have $38 worth of assets, I want to grow this safely. What does safely mean to you? I don't know what safely means to me. What do you suggest? Like, imagine what I'm talking about, right? Is like conversations what you should be able to have and comfort in your own privacy with your AI model, right? And you can discuss this with privacy. And then at some point, knowing that no one else knows your intention, your end goals, and your strategy, because everyone wants to have great execution on the outcome. Great execution quality means everyone's happy, right? So if you're going to do great execution just in general, whether it's a small transaction or large transaction, everyone wants great execution quality, right? That is our actual North Star. To get there it's going to take some education from our community to understand this, right? Nonetheless, I think the question really comes down to is like, why should I hold Supra? Like, I was told not to even ask this question, right? But basically, that's what everyone wants to ask. Okay, so let kind of paint a picture that is already here. 2 years ago in San Francisco, they didn't have Waymo without unsupervised drivers. Okay, Supra is like the first time to bring automation to a layer one, right? And it can be completely, absolutely, fully decentralized. But the folks that do create these auto vaults might have a DAO, a strategy that's implementing something on your behalf, might be a multi-signature distributed or autonomous organization, right? And they can, everyone needs to check those rules if this is like a good thing. Is there a rating system? Our team is working on a decentralized public Moody's, like a rating system and there's economics in which why you might even try to spend your time to vet it in the first place. There's economics to make it worthwhile, from a game theory point of view. Like, that dApp that you voted for that ultimately was a great dApp, they might want to throw some reputation value back to you for your long-term commitment, right? For example. So there are things that Supra are going to be leaning into, which is what economic models can be enabled with micro fees, as well as staking and commitments and offers. When I say offers, systems just like Nike, commercial brands, they do offers in their regions for a certain amount, and they fulfill it, right? But offers are only as good as the offers available, right? And that's it. So the thing is, the system we realize, provide offers to the system that can include, like, for example, if you stake a certain amount of Supra token for the period of time, you have access to price feeds, cross-chain communication, automation, on-chain randomness, AI Oracle response. Okay, that's a very expensive one, by the way. We're going to charge a lot for that because we have to charge like 5, models, right, that are decentralized. And not only that, it's because it's so valuable that there'll be a limited supply. Let's suppose we could do 100 requests per second, for example. Let them bid for whatever they want to pay for that. It can be a lot. Now, Supra can provide the service initially, of course. The demo is next week, right? the access for the community is going to be a little bit longer. For us to fully decentralize this type of model, it's going to take some time. Paper release, early prototype, accessible with our testnet, right? Super testnet that has live automation, right? And Oracle data as well. What we are doing right now, this is the kind of like the alpha, the meta right now, is for developers that want to have access to AI threshold Oracle, what it can do in terms of responding back non-deterministic information with a cryptographic proof to power some sort of on-chain automation. You're allowed, and we welcome you in, and you can use our service for free a lot. Go ahead, right? So it's somewhat permission because yes, there's costs, but if you want to take leverage of, for example, saying I want to build a protocol that actually responds to real-time sentiment analysis, right? You can't build DeFi protocols this way unless you introduce AI. You can't get AI or human-based very slow. It'll take them weeks to calculate each vote, right? Or real-time AI kind of deliberation. But you can't get AI's answer on chain with bias. You want to make sure that information brought on chain is not biased, and that there is actually a cryptographic trail of to like why did they make those decisions, right? Now this was going to be released as a fully centralized service. We'll move it to 4 parties, within hopefully 3 to 4 months. Move it to 60 parties after that, within another 3-4 months thereafter, and then invite anyone in that can prove themselves to be able to participate in this protocol. We think that this can be a very, very good service for not only Supra, and like of course we're very tempted to only make this available to Supra, right? But we could also give it to other chains, layer 1s and layer 2s that want this service that they just can't get elsewhere with this type of security guarantee. Our protocol is completely transparent. It makes complete sense. It's completely aligned with the physics of the space right now. We address ZKPs. We address trusted execution environments. We have our design decisions accordingly. And dude, this makes smart contract platforms. Man, if we were just say, let's just hog it for Supra only, this could make smart contract platforms do things they just can't do elsewhere. The fact that we're opening it up to other chains as well, of course, we think that it's going to be a positive, net positive, just making the circle bigger, right? Now, of course, these things are fee generating mechanisms. All right, so Supra does need to move into a revenue generating model. So John, what are your points of view of this like word rev, like real economic value or real economic activity? And like where does Supra try to aspire to go to in 2 to 4 years?
Yeah, totally. So I think most people, they say they see the term rev and they think revenue, but as you said, also the term is real economic value, and that is defined in different ways, right? But I think for the things that we're thinking about at Supra, of course, we think about real revenue, right? Generating revenue at the L1 level, and you can only really be able to do that if you have native automation. And so I know we talked a lot about the fact that users on Supra can actually utilize automation services and generate their own revenue through arbitrage or through optimizing yield in different pools across chain, etc. But also at the L1 level, when you have automation at the end of every block, you can actually sweep up and do auto arbitrage and find different revenue sources within the ecosystem itself, within DeFi. And so I think that's interesting as Supra moves towards revenue generation and also capturing real economic value. But as we move towards real revenue generation, we can slowly but surely get off block rewards. And I think this kind of leads us to maybe a discussion that we should have is like people point towards our token economics and say, hey, like your token economics sucks. But then we actually compare ourselves to Avalanche, we compare ourselves to Sui, and we see actually in the first year and a half, we have the same token econ. Not the same, but it's very similar. And
it's important to point out exactly like AVAX and Sui, they are fixed supply proof of stake coins and chains.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and we very much have studied them as well.
Yeah. So, but when we look at the future block rewards, for Supra, and we're trying to think about how do we wean off of that. So, in our token economics, you can see that we have block rewards for the next 12 years total. But we're actually thinking like in a conservatively, we'd like to wean off block rewards in the next 4 years. But internally, Josh and I talk about we got to do this in 2 years. We need to actually accelerate the fact that our network needs to make revenue, and of course for users and apps on Supra itself, but Supra as a foundation, as an L1, we also need to generate revenue as well. And so we're really pushing for this idea. I would love to say, I'd love for us to say today like some bold statement like we're going to be off block rewards in 2 years, right? Of course we can't say that, but really this is our intention. Our intention is to get there. And I think that will be one of the things that will, I think, make our community bullish about some of the changes that we're making towards token economics going forward.
Yeah, totally. James, you go ahead, please.
Talking about the tokenomics and even the comparison to the likes of Sui or AVAX, I know that we have a deck prepared, so I think now's a good time if you guys want to run through that deck. It also has a roadmap of where we are right now, what we can look forward to, and also a couple of the dApps that are on mainnet that are coming to mainnet. So Josh, I don't know if you want to take us through that, and we'll go through it piece by piece. Also, just a quick reminder to our community, if you want to ask a question, drop it in the replies to the live stream on X. I am going to be giving away 1,000 Supra to the 2 best questions. So if you have a question for John or Josh,
you can't sleep,
hopefully we have time to answer them, and drop them in the replies. Josh and John, yep. I'll leave it to you guys to run us through the deck.
Okay, let's go to the next slide. Yeah, so the key point though that John was hammering home, like how would we say that this is about automation, and why does that matter? How can that create a very interesting economy? Because it's about automation, indeed, of priority execution. So executing certain transactions every single block, that priority execution of automation tasks will create a very strong economic engine into I'm in San Francisco right now. It's like 5:30 or so. So 1 second here. Could you turn that? Thank you. Yeah, it is. Very early in San Francisco, but very happy.
I thought that was just for effect. You're fading out.
Yeah, it kind of looked like that. Yeah, no, for sure. Like the thing is, basically, I mean, Supra is straight up going for a system in which there's just value generation. Everything is about value generation. So economics automation means you create a basic auction model where folks will bid for priority access. And this is basically the actual underlying business model that enables all of Google. Google has an auction model for ad space, advertising network space. There's a fixed supply of units of available advertisement out there, and they can optimize for prioritizing access to their limited supply. In Supra's case, we are able to also create a marketplace where we can prioritize the execution of a limited supply of priority execution of automation, right? That's checked every single block, right? So this is, I know that we are a little bit pedantic and repetitive here about these things, for the last couple of weeks, but it's a big deal because these things have to be about revenue generation. And yes, I'm going to say Supra gets a little bit of a pass, a little bit, because we're a new novel blockchain that has done something no one else has done. Number two, yes, we also need to start to charge for our services, right? We do help a lot of protocols out there, chains. We're connected to many ecosystems and provide services to many ecosystems that are right now focused on price feeds. But the next frontier is about, subjective outcomes, this idea of a non-deterministic outcome that you need some resolution on, which may require some sort of AI to AI committee to committee deliberation. And then these groups are programs for different points of view, and then they have to agree on it. And then the thing is, they can provide assurances on chain if you believe their protocol has not been breached, that their protocol is within the bounds, right, and it's properly cryptographically secured and signed. This can power your automation task. The point is that Supra offers automation based off of both deterministic price feeds as well as subjective things like sentiment analysis, global macro events, technical indicators. We're talking about things like fear and greed index, right? We're talking about like also volatility VIX, etc. We're talking about also of folks to be able to mix and match their own set of indicators, employment, interest rate cuts, etc. This type of information with your own combination of also on-chain data, you can create your own custom indicator. So everyone becomes super autonomous that can manage their own assets on Supra through auto vaults with the help of AI agents. Okay, they are going to bid for the execution space. For most of us folks, we don't need to be top 1,000 to execute per block, because our little small trade is like worth maybe 25 cents to me tonight. Thank you. Right, but it adds up, what I'm saying. But my point though is like other folks are going to want to compete aggressively and pay a lot to be the one to execute that arbitrage trade or that liquidation. It's a free market, but the system itself captures that value. And it's like we're really designed to be a super optimized economic machine, actually, right? The whole system only works though with security, protocol security, right? But in the end, of course, the most optimized system is a system that is fundamentally, from protocol point of view, highly performant, but also in practice and implemented, and also just not only cryptographically, like game theoretically secure in terms of just value and dApps, but also there's other dynamics at play that can basically create this positive cycle in terms of folks that are launching their own personalized custom auto vaults, right, with their $38. And they are slowly, on a daily basis, imagine growing that 25 cents a day. That actually grows and compounds quick. It grows. And then suppose, though, it costs the system to compute those calculations that are earning him or her 25 cents per day, 10 cents. So they're making 15 cents on that sequence of automation tasks, Yeah, so this is like our layered approach where we do want to make this worth it for the end consumer. We want to make this worth it for the protocol, that uses our services, and they also layer ones and layer twos that also utilize our services. There needs to be a value alignment the whole place. And the thing is, we think that yes, the first 2 years are going to be they're very similar to the other proof of stake fixed supply chains, right? The first year and a half in particular, they're very similar. Now, what Supra and Jon has mentioned is we are moving towards, publicly we say maybe let's give it 4 years or so. Internally, we're saying like we would really like to do this in 2 years, which is wean off of block rewards. Have a system that is paid through fees, priority. So not gas fees. Gas fees are very minuscule. Gas fees are based off of like if you're trying to spam the network, right? This is the cost to spam the network, and there has some sort of like a baseline there, right? And that's some indication of what the gas fee ought to be. And systems that can handle a lot of capacity may have a very small gas fee. Now, can the system be fully at scale on day one? The answer is no. These things take time to progressively decentralized, right? Right. And we want to build and promote algorithms, by the way, that can handle hundreds, if not thousands of nodes. The thing is, the moment that you go from 150 nodes beyond, we have measured this in many algorithmic approaches. The scalability has an asymptote. It will plateau, right? And Supra's main thing, as I talked about earlier at the top of this conversation, is that we were early promoters of this idea of like all-to-all communication. The bandwidth is caught up with compute, and yes, these are things that are always going to be a high tension thing: bandwidth versus compute, availability of all-to-all communication, aggregation, verification of signatures, right? All this stuff, right? Long story short, the question that was the most interesting to me this morning was from a group that I think his name is Jarek, right? Kind of like jerk. And he asked about like how can Supra compare to Solana with his new evolution, and that was my answer for half of this conversation already. The other is, not only do I think we can implement our algorithms in our existing framework that's closer, smaller fix or adjustment, then they're going to have to major overhaul to do this kind of stuff. Like we can just make some key adjustments. Okay, let's put it that way. Now, still, like they think, of course, they have a huge edge, like what, 200 times larger, more than us, right? And what can we offer differently? Well, the answer is like we're all of our algorithms are going to perform extremely well with this new assumption of saying, oh, only 20% of the nodes need to be Byzantine, the other 20% are crash. That's fine. We get that. We're in that world as well. We understand it. We have designed our protocol to actually not really be in that because we're more strict. But this loosens up our requirements as well, as my point, and our changes to adjust towards, like, if you want to play that game, we can play that game too, and we will. And the thing is, still, we're all fast, cool. What's different? Of course, they have more dApps. How can Supra do something different than a Solana or Ethereum? You got to really offer them something they don't have elsewhere, right? So, of course, high throughput, low latency, this access to Oracle data, crossing communication, automation. And yes, we do think this AI Oracle service is very kind of a limited service, and we probably won't give it to every mainnet all at once, right? Unless they pay their fee, because there's limited supply. But I think on Supra itself, for applications on Supra, there's probably programs where there's ways that you can get access to this for like basically free, So the thing is, Supra is a public good. We service everyone that wants to pay for it. We just focus on giving you the right answer, like it or not. And it is what it is. And, it's expensive, but, like our job is just to make sure it's a good answer always, right? And some of these calculations are going to get very, very difficult, that are beyond what you can just do from price feeds. You're going to want to ask us to eventually be doing, ZKPs, HFE, MPC, all these types of compute heavy and bandwidth heavy operations. And the system actually really wants to service that, and we'll, set up our system to scale to address the need. But we're going to charge you, properly. And what we're going to be doing here is basically we're setting a couple of offers, right? John, us, the team, others are putting up some offers in terms of you can buy access to future compute. You're basically staking Supra, okay, is a form of access, buying access, a form of buying access to future Supra services, including access to our Oracle price feeds, access to our on-chain VRF or on-chain randomness, access to cross-chain communication coming soon, and of course the big one is access to our threshold AI Oracle, which is going to be able to answer very complex things on-chain very quickly in a secure manner. And then, more or less, as these systems decentralize, what happens is you have more decentralized participants to pay out economics. So it gets more expensive over time, right? So these offers are about, the guarantee is about the guarantee, right? And you're buying into the execution of the guarantee. So yes, you might. We suggest if you think that you are an infrastructure or a agent or a protocol that could benefit from our various services, from Oracle Prices, 500 data pairs, cryptocurrency, equities, commodities, moving towards the very interesting things that include sentiment analysis, right? Interest rate cuts, macro events and global sentiment and CPI, et cetera, to mix and match those types of data indicators with your own strategies, your own point of view to manage these. We call them auto vaults, right? Where it's like designed to be cryptographically secure, but executing these strategies that you approve. We do believe that, as John had mentioned, this becomes like, to stimulate everything we're talking about here. It is like 1,000x, amount of on-chain transactions to achieve this, and the interface that you engage with is your AI that is you feel secure with, and it's your enclave, and it will execute your intention by plugging into things like Supra's open blocks, right? Plugging into our infrastructure for automation, and actually a big one is the data indexer open blocks. So what we're going to be baking into our model is this offer for different folks. Hey, layer 1, layer 2, you're willing to pay us $100,000 worth of fiat, right, or your token. Okay, at this stage, what we are going to be introducing and prioritizing is take that value, acquire our Supra token, and stake it. And the staking, the longer that value is at stake, you get the bigger discount for future purchase. Now, what gets interesting is we also want to make sure that if some folks says, I actually only need 10 million units of execution, but I have overpaid for, not overpaid, but I have access to 30 million worth of compute units, they can offload it, right? You can, but you still want to maintain a certain amount, right? Where you're keeping up the staking period like that, So there's many things like this. These are like new types of reward systems that are actually transparent and on chain. And this is how we expect to go mainstream. Beyond just dApps and other chains. We, of course, want to charge every single opportunity on the stack, and we will. But really, the answer is like, look, we think the best ultimate experience is some sort of AI interface. It's so obvious, like the same thing everyone taught us from like as we were in my generation of kids, right? Like simple AI interface, like basically Jarvis that understands your intent in a privacy like preserving manner, and then is like super smart that can plug into a data indexing of across multiple chains to help solve in a personal privacy preserving manner, your intention. So you don't express your intention publicly, so someone can run you, right? But they're also, yes, along the lookup and setting up automations, etc., are going to need to deploy strategies on chain smart contracts on your behalf after they solved it. But also the solving, they're going to go through systems like Supra, having access to price sheet data, time-stamped, time series data, etc. They can cross-correlate all kinds of things. Yes, there's many things that folks should be paying for that they're not paying for today. And we're going to create a system that is sustainable, meaning that these are the systems of services that you'll have access to at certain ratios. It's basically the same things that I think airlines are really good at, and like credit card companies and airlines have these types of, promotions math out and like mathematically reasoned around, right? Supra is not going to say that those are good approaches, but there can be ways where the system at large, through just on-chain transparency, enable offers, periods of discounts. So I'm actually really interested to create an offer set for maybe 100 folks, layer 1, layer 2s, dApps, as well as, token holders, to have access to By the way, I want to make this clear that this discussion has been across multiple segments and departments of our team, and this is not definitive at all. But I just want to publicly say that, like, look, I understand that the community wants to understand exactly where the value is coming from, right? And I want to, of course, my baseline answer is, well, the vertical integration of high throughput layer one smart contract platforms, native oracles, with cross-chain communication, automation, etc. The fact that it can exist all in one and we're proving it is in and of itself valuable. And in my opinion, this is where my personal opinion and just like not financial advice is it's much more valuable than we're at today in the public market. That, once again, I want to be very clear, that is not financial advice. You should not think anything like that is usable, against like, oh, what Josh said, X, Y, Z. Well, no, I'm saying my opinion. And if you don't want to hear my opinion, you should just hang up, like don't listen. But when I share my opinion, I'm backing it up with real things, okay? And that includes, I want you not to take this as financial advice. Number two is that, yeah, we think that our whole value proposition from the beginning was that we think other layer ones and layer twos are going to pay us recurring revenue to access our services, data price feeds, on-chain randomness, unbiased low latency on-chain randomness, and non-deterministic outcomes through AI Oracle, right? We think these things are going to allow folks that want to derive value from our services and protocols. We're forcing and requiring them to reciprocate by hold something. We'd never asked them to do this yet. So this is fun. Now we're going to be moving into that now. I think, look, the thing that, I feel like if you've ever been punched in the face, right, it's like, or if you accidentally like rode your like skateboard or rollerblades, kind of like hit a post or like weren't looking, same feeling where like it's like your nose, right? That is surprise pain, wasn't expecting, etc. Now, I think it's really important for our community to know that, yeah, like I feel that we have been just like bullied a little bit too much. I mean, let's be honest. What have we shipped? We shipped next generation layer one, right? With a next generation protocol, cross-chain communication protocols, automation, etc., all in one on testnet. Now, testnet, it's like, oh, that's not real. Well, everyone has to remember, if you do this properly, testnet is the mainnet next. Testnet is the evolution of the mainnet. That is the actually more advanced system, right? So yeah, I mean, these things, as far as I'm concerned, basically mainnet, layer one, Oracle, on-chain randomness, cross-chain communication, automation, single stack, with prototype to Threshold AI oracles this upcoming week, right? I mean, I think beyond that, I think it's really important for developers to build their own thesis as to why like auto vaults, auto strategies, cross-chain setting might be valuable for them. And we think what's going to happen. This is what we think is going to happen. At least this is our hope. Supra can do things on-chain that other blockchains can't do, such as, AI-driven execution automation, right? So if you can do things on Supra you can't do on a centralized exchange or traditional, finance, right? For example, you want to say if the price of this asset versus this asset has this correlation in this time series, and also the CPI report has to be this, you could not do that on chain. You had to have your own bot, and you had to have your own pipelining of this information. And even then, your strategy might be wrong, right? So the thing is, Supra is aiming towards with the AI agent interface to basically just speak what you're trying to do. It verifies it with you, helps you deploy it on a testnet first, run it across OpenBlock's historical data to see if this strategy would have worked, put into semi-live model where you're actually now testing it against real time before you decide to publicly deploy it, with like audits and everything else. Folks, developers are actually going to be strategists. That's what we think happens, is these developers can be both artists and developers and also strategists, and route value to their heart's desire, and some strategies are going to be worth more than others. And I think there's going to be many strategies that might be worthwhile for sure. Or, the thing is, these all to execute these strategies, these hundreds of thousands of potential strategies every second require some level of gas consumption, right? So this is where we're moving towards. We want the end consumer to like, yeah, I'm running like, like my 10 checks per minute automation for my little use case. I sell scented candles, whatever. Yeah. So I think this is where we have to move towards. So yeah, I understand that there's look, we talked, as John mentioned, like there's some attention towards token economics, right? And let's look at the last 12 to 15 months, and also imagine other chains that are fixed supply proof of stake networks. AVEX and Sui are very good projects, and we studied them as well. We know the economics behind them are very good. And Supra has a different condition, meaning we were actually birthed into a situation where we didn't have as much super concentrated believers. We had to do multiple rounds of funding. We have 4,008, basically 4,000 and 8,000. These folks have, basically impressed their identity into the Super Genesis block. It was these folks actually KYC'd. So we have 4,008 folks that have KYC in our Genesis block, Supra. So we are very different launch, and we did think that these decentralized principles mattered, right? And also, sure, like now we're paying for it, and this like people are just like, oh, you guys, you can ship it the most important things in the world, and still, if the token price doesn't go up, I don't like you, right? That's like, it is what it is. But what can we say? The only thing we can say is like we're just going to do and execute upon the plan and the existing roadmap at a very high level, bring things that others can't do and improve it. And I think in the next few days, you might see a video, even if the voiceover is AI driven, even if it just doesn't have perfect grammar, etc. But know that the demonstration is actually real, right? And what's the why it's profound is because what we have is something like the following. Someone says, I want you to check the sentiment of, for example, this is just an example that the team, if not now, will be working on perhaps in the next several weeks. But the use case is like, look, I want to know if Bitcoin moves more than the Bitcoin sentiment changes more than a certain degree in the next 6 hours. And I want to set up my first automation transaction to trigger Threshold AI Oracle to look up Bitcoin sentiment every 6 hours. And I'll pay for that lookup. I want to respond to me in a secure manner that can trigger my output. My output is like, well, my smart contract wants to know if this output is, 0 to 3, this might be negative sentiment. 4 to 6 might be baseline, don't do anything, and then 7 to 10 might be like, okay, buy more. Who knows, right? So the thing is, these types of things, that's a very simple use case. You have your intention of looking up Bitcoin sentiment every 6 hours. If the output, or you ask for the response to be to have the threshold AI oracles reach consensus on a response that's between 0 to 3, 4 to 6, 7 to 10, right? That will trigger something on your smart contract to buy or sell or something, right? Or hold, right? We think these tools, with the interface just being like voice, hey Zarvis, hey, whoever your companion is, right? Can just like weekly, daily. Is it, by the way, hey, good morning. I'm glad you finally woke up. I guess you had some jet lag. I see that. And like, and then also it's like, by the way, here the summary of your trades. And you asked me to, ask you about this. And then just imagine they're just going through your day, kind of adjusting these long-term strategies with your assistance. This is the type of thing when humans start to use AI to do agent activity on chain. This is already 10 to 100x, right? But to 10x it beyond that is to allow the AI agents to observe your deploy strategies, and the strategies based off of different changing conditions need to be adjusted. So the modifications, the back and forth, the activation, cancellation, reactivation, relaunching, different parameters of automations that's watched by agents, right, in real time, that can actually become something that is 10xing more on-chain activity, right? So this is kind of the paradigm that we're viewing, why this matters. And I think what we can do is what our job is right now is to prove is like what we just talked about is not only real, it's here and it's powerful and it's cool and it's going to only get better, right? And then also we want to show you why folks might want to have a reason to put their, to why even hold this compute asset, right? Supra as a compute asset, like it gives you some sort of computation on this system, but there's no one saying that the system couldn't necessarily have, short-term promotions, offers for this period only for this many users that have this condition. There are so many accounts that can have this lock in this discount, right? These are things that auto vaults could do. And this is what we want folks that are curious about launching their e-commerce platform, etc. Like you could just launch on this and also just use any type of front end. You could use Squarespace, you could use GoDaddy, you could use, WordPress, you can use anything. But that the computation platform, the payments, etc., are secure, and you can have these programs and promotions, etc. We also want to move into that world, right? We want to move into the commercial world. So there's a lot. We can't talk about everything today, right? But as we have not missed a dot, we talk about every 6 months. Every month for 6 months straight. We show up for these calls. We do create these AI generated updates because we can't do 2 hours per month. Like, right? It's a lot. But these AI or these updates, right? The video they're quite remarkable.
They're getting better, aren't they?
11 labs. Like, I don't know if they know that we're real or not right now, So I mean, the thing is we will commit to always put a QR code if this is AI generated but approved content, right? Which we have done. And we're introducing a small but important kind of thing in terms of very clearly the way that data has to be verified in the near future in the world of deepfakes, right? So yeah, that said, I mean, look, yeah, John, I mean, I know that we should talk about containers, but should we not, or do we want to talk a bit about containers real quick?
I think we're probably over a little bit, and I actually really like how you preemptively went through most of the hard questions that I think our community might have, but we can go through a few more. I mean, but I think Josh, you definitely took you took us into the deep end, and sometimes we don't want to talk about price and stuff, but of course our team and we're affected by it. We're all affected by it, and but we're building something remarkable, and I think you touched upon a lot of the things and a lot of questions that people have. But that being said, James, is there anything else maybe as we kind of close out that maybe we can answer some other questions?
Sure. Yeah, there are a couple. I don't know if you guys want to run through the rest of the deck. There were a couple of things on there. I'm not sure if you want to do that or leave that for the next call.
Yeah, I think we can leave for the next call. The thing is, I want to make it clear that there are going to be very simple economics that are digestible, like people can understand, like, oh, this is why it's worth it. And what we like, I know that there's, in my opinion, there's a fundamental value here. And the thing is, what we need to do is help package it for different stages of the consumer. So some is retail, some is some are dApps and protocols, and some are layer ones infrastructures, and some are other partners, right? That is the boring stuff. Now the thing is, that said, those things are hyper interesting as well, because you're constantly finding the win-win, the equilibrium in the value exchange. So packaging it for these frameworks, but also let's not make the party boring by focusing on that stuff right now. Let's just say that, look, we believe that we created a lot of value through the services we offer, including Threshold AI Oracle. Folks, there's a limit on how many requests per second the system can handle and provide the security guarantees we aspire for, right? And it could become expensive. And maybe you, as the end consumer, might want to consider buying some pre-credit access to these services before they get saturated. These are types of things that I'm talking about called offers. And we can formalize on-chain offers through smart contracts. They only exist for limited supply, limited time, and this is it. And by the way, like every single consumer packaged goods industry, product, etc., has always had great offers as part of the way any brand works. Supra is selling a service also as a network, decentralized network, a service that is decentralized compute for various things, including access to price sheet data, cross communication, automation, and activation of your smart contract. It could be another chain, not even Supra, of a question that is beyond just price feed data. It could be things like sentiment analysis. It could be who won the election, who won the soccer game. It could be what did you think about the last article that was printed, or the movie. It could be many things. It could be, give me a summary of the social sentiment with Rotten Tomatoes synthesis. See, let me get, who knows what the people are going to ask, right? That's the key point. This is the difference between traditional Oracle versus AI Oracle. Traditional Oracle is like, here's 500 data pairs. We give it to you as fast as possible, securely, right? It's security always number one first. Here's the data. It's very fast, finalized. Here's the security proof, right? But that's your 500 sets of data. What about any other question in the world that you might want to ask that's not related to like the price of corn right now, right? So it could be like, is the next Superman movie going to be any good? Probably is, by the way, from what I saw. So I didn't watch the movie, but I'm saying I saw a small commercial. I'm like, wow, this is great. I don't know why this might be useful for a prediction market, but it might be. Prediction market is basically a case where people want to bet on anything, right? And let them bet whatever. It's like not ours. We don't care. It's not like we're neutral. Like that's not our problem. Like we only provide the platform, the speed, the execution security, and the information. We don't have any dog in this fight in terms of like what you guys bet on, right? So that's the whole promise of Supra, by the way. It's just like, no, it's just like completely high throughput, high compute, neutral platform. And these use cases, especially in the Oracle threshold, Oracle point of view, you go from just price feeds, you go to any question you ever want to ask. Now, the system cannot answer everything. So we'll have a system which will say, hey, listen, that's beyond our scope. So there will be some filtering. But if it is around like sentiment analysis, social metrics, analysis on like spreadsheets or whatever, and whatever you want to create, if your system has a transparent governance model and also some sort of cryptographic like communication protocol that everyone has confidence in, that this is the right answer, it can kind of work. Now, I can't go into too much detail. There is very much a reputation, a rating system involved here. The team's working on this, where, for example, if you have built up credit through social cred throughout the system over a long period of time, your vote might actually be slightly weighted more, right? So we don't have this runaway plutocracy effect where the rich make all the rules and also earn more block rewards and therefore have ability to become more of the network governance, etc. And that's a runaway effect. We do want to layer in the ability for folks that have provable on-chain reputation and rating system to their vote may be actually worth a little bit more to sway the events and tiebreakers, etc. But also the whole thing is completely transparent on-chain, right? So this is the type of things we're moving towards. And the thing is, let's be honest, we are so fucking lucky because we get to play with the layer one world and blockchain, digital decentralized compute, but in the world of meets AI. Like the thing is, AI can't just do nothing and everything without some level of trust. And the clear answer everyone knows is basically AI needs to manage keys, right? Private keys, etc. They need to be able to follow some baseline public ledger protocols, right? And this is clearly like what is that kind of system going to like? It's going to want to be able to route efficiently between different chains and layers in real time through automation, right? So we think folks will like Supra to also trigger other automations on other chains. I think that this is also a very cool thing. And but also the big one is we think folks will bring assets that are issued on other chains, whether that's layer one assets and RWAs, whatever, to Supra, to manage it on Supra, because you can do these auto vaults, you can do these strategies with these AI oracles and threshold, condition logic and on-chain zero block delay execution, things that you can't even do on traditional finance like centralized exchanges. That's actually our big bet. Like folks will bring assets from other chains to Supra to let Supra be the execution engine, the most sophisticated execution engine for these things, and then they can just settle back to the other chains. But coming into Supra, leaving Supra, there can be small basis points going through SupraNova, entering our system. There can be basis points on the fee and the value of the flow in and out. We think really transparently that if we are the best playground for DeFi, transparent AI agents, it's just the best structure for them to be most efficient. They get the best ROI, right? Just by deploying it. Folks, I believe, will bring their assets that originated on other layer ones and layer twos to Supra, create markets for that, and then create automations to manage their assets, knowing that they can't even do some of their strategies on centralized exchanges. They can't take into account CPI reports, job cuts or rates, etc., in the centralized exchange unless they run an external bot, right? Which they don't know how to do either. So what if we just like gave them all these tools with the simplest UI interface? I think folks will bring their assets, including Bitcoin, wrap Bitcoin. Remember, these are representations of these assets. You can't bring an asset to another chain directly like that. It's always going to be some sort of representation, right? But we can have a perfect ledger, cryptographically secure, and allow that asset to now, what might take an hour for a transaction on Bitcoin, to do it at sub-second on Supra. Same asset that allows and opens up its ability to just do more with its underlying asset value, right? Supra becomes a next generation execution layer. So folks come to Supra because you can do things on Supra you can't do elsewhere, and it's fast and secure. That's our real game plan. And we'll charge for it. But we think we can also look. I know that some of you don't like to hear like what you'll charge for it. I understand that, but yeah, it has to be paid for some way. We think the best way to charge for it is to have folks that want to use our services to stake our token for longer periods of time to access the services at a discount rate, right? Remember, they never really paid us anything. Those assets that they've staked, they can take out within 48 hours, anytime they want. But they also forfeit the discount program. This is the type of model we're moving towards. And yeah, I mean, like, we really want to make this like the key point is this: if the system can generate enough value collectively. The system itself that enables it will eventually find an equilibrium that needs to support its underlying infrastructure and for those to keep it healthy. I can't talk about what those numbers look like because I don't really know, but the things that is and are in our control is to make sure that folks have equitable access in simple terms as to like very powerful tools. Yeah, so I guess we're kind of running out of time. John or James, you guys want to have the last word here?
Let's try and squeeze in two community questions. Real easy one for you, John. I have to ask this. I'm assuming this is referring to the UFC fighter. Of course, why is Jon Jones ducking Aspinall? Give us the context here, John. What is Space Bob Jones talking about here?
I had to actually look that up. Oh my gosh. Josh and I mean, maybe obviously we don't have that much life outside of family and Supra. And I don't even watch TV anymore. And I know everywhere I go, like, if, Dubai, every single event, everyone's like, oh, Jon Jones, like they talk about the UFC or as me being a fighter. And I joke about it. So it's funny. So I should keep up with Jon Jones, the fighter. But yeah, why is he ducking Aspinall? Yeah, I have no idea. James, do you watch Jon Jones, the fighter? I'm the Jon Jones of Web3. It's a little bit different. Do you?
Are you talking about the consensus algorithm from Solana? I mean, I can't tell the spelling is weird. What do you guys? What's the question?
No. Jon Jones is a fighter, and
I know Jon Jones, of course.
He's ducking this other fighter, Aspinall. He's not wanting to fight him, I guess.
I don't know Jon Jones from UFC, to be honest with you. I do watch a bit of UFC. We have a big the middleweight champion of the world is actually South African, Dricus du Plessis, so huge fan there. But okay, last question, guys, because I know that we're over time. Let's see if we can do this one. Sammy asks, what are the pessimistic and optimistic timelines? So sort of a nice range, if this is possible to answer. What are the pessimistic and optimistic timelines for EVM on mainnet?
Yeah, I mean, let me go for pessimistic. Okay, so
start with pessimistic, huh?
Yeah, no, this is.
Well, John could be optimistic. Josh could be pessimistic.
No, it's not that we're like that. It's more like, well, I mean, remember we're not supposed to talk about timelines anymore because you guys are just like, hey, 2 seconds over the line. I saw that. I have to make a tweet and I have to email you, by the way. It's like
and DM you on every platform.
Yeah. Okay. So no, we understand, but these systems, as y'all know, are take time. Like even Fire Dance was like 3 years late, right? So sure, these things are very complex, and that said, like look at what we've done in the last like several weeks. Like the public testnet has the most advanced network that we're going to ship. The public testnet becomes mainnet, right? And it has layer 1 Oracle price feeds as well as cross-chain communication automation and early integration with threshold AI oracles, right? So, I mean, look, we are just going to be focusing on value creation and packaging it. We understand that messaging needs to be adjusting, etc. But certainly, the bottom line is like, look, we just want to win people's business purely by it's worth it for them. Not even worth it for them. They love it and they feel like they're like getting a great deal out of it. This is why like reputation systems, rating systems can actually stimulate the baseline of other economic systems, right? And of course, that's not like what we're moving for is directly, but we do realize that this identity layer, fabric, and reputation system, rating system, collective governance, etc., can actually provide a lot of some framework for automation decisions. Like for example, it's like, okay, I have an automation, but like my rule is like it doesn't interact with anything less than some like 5 stars of publicly rated, protocols. We probably move into that world is very analogous to the world, the analog today. I mean, rather, it's just these things are, you're bringing in these new opportunities for economics But we don't think that these like splintering of value into points and sub points and etc. is a sustainable model. We actually are more into like a single token model, where one asset staked for over long periods of time can give you more access compute to the system that you need, and you're reserving it basically. And I think this is a very powerful model. We can't go into the details beyond that, but yes, we understand. Folks want us to look at every aspect of what we're doing, including token economics. I would say, well, look at please analyze the last. You guys have been really harsh and judgmental in the last 6 months. And I would say, look at how we are compared to other proof of stake fixed supply chains, right? And I would say easily month by month, go through 15 months, you're going to see we have really modeled very similar towards some other major ecosystems that have done well. There's nothing out of the ordinary in terms of the numbers, okay? But yet we're penalized. Why? Because you hear that we have 100 billion token supply. What's the difference if your token's 10x as well? The thing is, I'm surprised by folks that say like they don't understand that everything is completely proportional, completely ratios the same, right? It's really telling to me when I hear people talk about that. It's like, wow, that is a skewed worldview if you can't understand what we said in the public post months ago, that's ratio equivalent, mathematically the same. I'm surprised to hear the backlash. I'm surprised like that. I guess there really are that like like I could say cuss word people out there in the world. And like I'm not, of course I wouldn't say that, but like wow, like that's our fault. Like we didn't articulate this well. We didn't let people know it's the same. The numbers are the same. This is user experience benefit because we do think the system can facilitate a lot of future compute, for ecosystem. So yeah, I mean, Supra is hiring. Sure, I think these comments here, it's a lot more interviews to get in these days, you know. Um, but yeah, of course, please, if you're a great talent, and the best way, I know this is like a cheeky and BS thing to say, is like, but the best way to get the attention of the ecosystem is to just build something really cool, right? And don't rug it. Like don't be like Fragger or whatever that guy's was. Remember him? Our early community knows. Yeah. It's never had a face to face with him. I didn't, but I did have a call with him before. And some people, I'm not saying he's like the devil or anything, but some people have to do what they have to do. But I was surprised. I guess it wasn't so much of a surprise when he asked me for certain things, and then I couldn't do it other than to give him a loan. I've loaned him like $500 before, because he actually was like the second place in a hackathon. But he also, throughout that experience with me, I'll just kind of briefly say that he seemed like he was like a man on the go, like having to leave his hotel and being kicked out of his room and then have to be moving to some other place. I don't know his full identity, but yeah, that was. I mean, I guess eventually every network has to experience that kind of thing, right? But it happened within like I don't know 90 days. That was like crazy for us, right? Like he seemed like, and he was actually a pretty good developer, but also he was just copy pasting code. And I don't think we ever saw any audit. And I know that he told me also a lot of the things he was doing AI generated is fine, but it's actually not fine if there's real money. The thing is, his DApp, I want to be really clear for everyone to know since we're on the topic, and we're talking about like the Cetus hack, right? That was like 200 million on Sui. Had nothing to do with us, but Supra has to think about what could that happen to us, right? Now, in this case, with the Fragger Labs project, right? They got second place in the hackathon. Their hack actually had not to do with the fact that they had launched a lending protocol on Supra. Actually, they used the fact that their lending protocol got hackathon second place winner to build reputation into the Supra community, and then they built a Telegram bot to trade your meme coins. Okay, and that's where they leaked your private key to them, and then they hit and ran. And I don't really know like beyond that. It wasn't. I don't think it was more than 50K of total value, but still, that's dings, man. And it had nothing to do with Super directly, but I think maybe on the order of 50K from the community were burnt. Folks that had their meme coins and such. So there was actually another one, Robbie the Robot rug pull or attempt. I don't know, like half the partners rugged. I don't know the full story. I didn't know the full scope of that either, but that was like, Jesus, like really? So I think so. One
thing
piece
is,
of
it
research.
happens on other ecosystems all the time. It's just
Yeah,
painful.
yeah, yeah.
It's really painful to see.
Yeah. So now I do want to mention that for sure. Like the skill at which it happens on Super is much smaller, but it's painful. It's these growing pains, and like we have to be more responsible. Like anyone that had aped into a non-vetted project just because they have a I don't know, meme, whatever. Um, you have to, it's your responsibility, and the thing is, it's everyone's personal responsibility in Web3. It really is. So everyone needs to be very vigilant across these things. And now we're about to put out some research, the basic kind of framework. It's going to feel like elementary school level, but that's good because this is meant for like the elementary school level, which is a framework in which you're going to launch a meme coin or a decentralized science project, right? An anti or rug mitigation framework. Rug mitigation framework includes like transparent rules and governance and distribution. So you can do this, but there's like basically how do you make sure that you can't, as a meme project or NFT project or a decentralized science project, rug, milestone base, whatever. And yes, there are going to be concerns about token utility, and we can talk about that later. But the thing is, like, this is actually a major blog piece that Super is going to be putting out the next couple of days. It's a simple thing that goes a long way that, like, hopefully could have prevented some of this other stuff, and we as an industry should, and actually as a community, if you guys can create videos about protecting yourself, on Web3, right? It could be like, the reason why you might use Starkey Wallet is because you have, recovery schemes. It could be like why you're also not using the same email across every platform and maybe use VPN occasionally, etc. Content like that to kind of could be useful content, just FYI. But yeah, so anyways, long story short, yeah, I mean, look, John, James, you guys have the last word. This is a good call. I know we covered a lot. We really kind of were hard on the sleeve to say, listen, this is what we're building towards. And it's like, you might not understand it, but it's going to be really good. And we're proving this really quickly. Like we're actually a very impressive team. With the resources we have, we accomplished a lot. And we're not just saying this is theory. We're going to prove it with like this next week is going to be great. Next month is going to be better in terms of what we can bring to market. Everything we bring on testnet is going to go mainnet in the next, like, let's just call it roughly period here, right? And it's going to be amazing. And it's going to be proving things that everyone thought that you couldn't do on a layer one. And let's have that discussion at that time, I guess. But, folks, I think we believe are going to bring their assets to Supra through SupraNova, right? To do things on Supra you can't do even on a centralized exchange or TradFi. That's why we think it's going to get used a lot. Yeah, so yeah, you guys have the last word, gents. It's a long day, yeah.
Let's do it. All right, James. Anything last thing?
Nothing from my side. I think we're good for questions. Anything from your side, John, that you'd like to wrap up to the community with?
No, I really appreciated Josh's sincerity. I think a lot of things Josh was saying is out of heart, like heart on the sleeve, and I think that's important. we have to understand that, you know, launching a token, you know, post TGE, I've always heard it's very difficult, and it is quite difficult because we have a lot of responsibility, a lot to, you know, there's a lot of people rooting for us, and there's also people that hate us, and it's difficult. And I think I actually think it was Josh and I have been working together for a long time. It's been like over 7 years. And one thing that we have, that I know that we have, is we have the ability to survive, not only survive, but make it this far. And I think it just, there's a lot of grit, hard work, determination, and innovation that comes out of struggle. And I heard that, what was it? The NVIDIA CEO on, like, he gave a talk at Stanford, and he mentioned that he wishes pain. He was like, I wish ample amounts of pain and suffering for these Stanford students that probably had pretty easy lives up until that point. And he said, I wish you ample amounts of pain and suffering, because that is actually where you can develop and grow the most. And that's kind of like in our journey at Supra, that's kind of, I think Josh can resonate with that. A lot of the ideas and innovations came out of that pain and suffering. And I think, you know, we have a very sincere team. We have, you know, we're research led by Josh and Dr. Annika Kate and our research team. Our team in general, marketing, you know, James, the content, the sup, everything that we're doing is out of at least it's sincere, and it's a willingness to want to do something great. And so I would just say, you know, please have patience and know that we are working very hard, and we're going to be kicking up marketing. We have Permissionless coming up. We're the title sponsor of Permissionless, so we're going to go big there. Josh is going to be on main stage. We give keynote first day, really good timing. So if you're in New York, check it out. We're also going to be sponsoring the main event and after party on the first day. And so we also have a VIP event for a lot of our ecosystem and different relationships that we've built within the space. And so we're looking forward to that. So know that marketing is coming. The timing of the market right now, you know, it looks good for the general industry. And so I think it's a good time to really ramp up marketing. And so definitely watch us on X and all the content that we're creating, and you'll see things are going to be moving forward. So that's about it. And I think we can cut out. I mean, we've extended like 40 minutes beyond our hour. So this has really been great, and want to thank you, James. Thanks, Josh, and thanks to our community for sticking with us.
Yeah, thanks so much, gentlemen. This has been great. I mean, a lot of time out of your schedules. I know how early or late it must be in San Francisco for you, Josh, John in Taiwan. It must be pretty late as well. So, gentlemen, to both of you, thank you so much. To our audience, thank you for tuning in and watching. Thank you for your support. And look out for us at Permissionless coming up in June. That's going to be a very significant month for us. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next community call in exactly 4 weeks' time. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers, John.
Thanks, everyone.